Welcome to another edition of Studio Central Face to Face on the Rome News Tribune's website. We're glad to have you with us today. We're also glad to have Joe Cook with us today. Joe is the Executive Director of the Coosa River Basin Initiative. And the CRBI group is celebrating a big anniversary this year, Joe. 20 years. That just doesn't seem it's been that long.
It doesn't. It's gone by fast, I guess. Actually, CRBI is one of the oldest watershed groups in the state of Georgia. Formed back in 1992 and 93, and on January 28th, we're going to be celebrating 20 years of protecting the Coosa River with our annual membership meeting at the Rome Eco River Education Center at Ridge Ferry Park. And it's going to be at 6:30 p.m.
January 28th could be a very important day environmentally. If we have counted correctly, that could be the day we have a hatch of some eagle chicks out at Berry College. But that's totally aside and for another interview another day. Joe, 20 years, I can remember back at the very beginning, I guess one of the first really big accomplishments that CRBI had was the settlement of a case involving the mill up in Tryon.
Yeah.
And really there hasn't been a whole lot of court action involved in some of the group's activity. But what could you summarize as being some of the group's biggest accomplishments over the last 20 years?
Well, I think, you mentioned the Tryon issue. The Chattooga River used to run blue into Weiss Lake. It no longer does that, in large part because of the Clean Water Act and the action that CRBI and others have taken. But, in recent years, we settled reached a legal agreement with a developer of a retail center up in Canton, which set aside $500,000 for land protection in the upper Coosa River or in the upper Etowah River Basin. So that money is now being used to preserve land up in the Etowah Basin, protect habitat for endangered species, and also protect water quality for the city of Canton, where that shopping center was ultimately built. Those type things, those are big accomplishments. CRBI was also involved in the lawsuit that forced the state of Georgia to implement the total maximum daily load process, which is a process for identifying polluted streams and getting them cleaned up. So those type things have taken place. We've educated thousands of school children through our education programs, logged hundreds of adopt-a-stream water quality monitoring events, and cleaned literally probably well over 100,000 pounds of trash from our rivers over the past 20 years. So those are some of the things that we've done, and we're very excited about the upcoming event on the 28th to kind of celebrate all of this.
One of the things that has not happened over the last 20 years is that we still in Georgia do not have an agreement with our neighbors in Alabama and our neighbors in Florida with respect to water. And that has sort of festered all sorts of legislative activity in Georgia. We've done a lot of different things that have been focused on water and water availability. The governor has got a new initiative, I believe, that I'm not sure in CRBI's issue, in their site goes quite far enough in protecting some of our waterways and dealing with our waters. Is that an accurate summation?
Yeah, well, it's about priorities and setting priorities. And right now, what the governor has done, he has set aside $300 million for water supply projects. When they were coming up and developing this program to disperse this $300 million, CRBI and members of the Georgia Water Coalition lobbied heavily for conservation and efficiency projects to be included among those projects that would be eligible for funding under the governor's water supply program. Unfortunately, the governor refused, and what we've seen in the first round of grants and loans from this $300 million program, virtually all of it has gone to large reservoir projects that cost, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. The program was intended to identify critical and cost-effective water supply projects, but reservoirs and dams are not cost-effective. They are the most expensive water supply options that we have. Water conservation and efficiency projects are the most cost-effective. So what we've seen is the state making a priority of building dams and reservoirs and not putting money into funding conservation and efficiency projects. So last year they put about $80 million into reservoir projects, one of which was the Paulding County Reservoir, Richland Creek Reservoir. That was a $29 million loan to the Paulding County Water and Sewer Department to build this reservoir on Richland Creek, which feeds the Etowah River. So we spent $29 million giving a loan to Paulding County. Right now, Paulding County cannot account for 25% of the water that they purchase from Cobb County, which is where they get their water supply from now, either through leaks in their pipes or just bad metering. So what our state has decided in giving that loan is, rather than investing in fixing the infrastructure that we have and using the supplies that we have more efficiently, instead we've decided to spend $29 million to build a reservoir to pump water to those leaking pipes. And what CRBI and the Water Coalition is saying is, let's fix the pipes, let's invest in water conservation efforts, and that's going to get us more bang for our buck. And after that, if we need to build reservoirs, then we can, look at building reservoirs. So it's really a matter of priorities.
Well, specifically closer to home, I know there are still some issues that are on the table. One of them, of course, the Burwell Creek issue with respect to the proposed city center project there. What is the exact status of that project at this point?
Well, right now, of course, the permit was suspended by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers back in the spring. Ledbetter Properties, who is doing the development, has now gone back and they're working on new site plans for the project. We're concerned about this project because it's going to fill in about 4 acres of wetlands and about 50 acres of floodplain. That property that is slated for development was also supposed to be part of Rome Central Park, a green space area stretching from Jackson Hill, the top of Jackson Hill and the historic properties there, all the way down to the Usinawa River and Ridge Ferry Park. And what we'd like to see is that property preserved. But right now what we're doing is trying to work with the City Commission and work with Ledbetter Properties to preserve those wetlands on site and preserve the land along Burwell Creek and have natural corridors from Ridge Ferry Park to Jackson Hill and protect those wetlands and the important functions that those wetlands perform for our rivers.
One of the things that has been an issue or an interest of mine over the years, Rome was founded because the two rivers met here to form the third river, and yet use of our rivers just seems very, very negligible. Now the city, of course, is in the process right now of attempting to develop a new dock downtown. Do you see that in any way as a threat, or would the organization see increased use of the rivers as a threat or as a goal?
No, I think the Town Green project and building access to the river there at the Town Green is a great idea, and it's going to dramatically increase the ability for people to get out on the river and use the river. So we're very excited about that. One of the things that we've been working on for the past year is developing the Etowah River Water Trail, which is a 160-mile long trail from Dawsonville to Rome with public access points along the river. And late last year, we revealed or opened our Etowah River Water Trail website, which is a comprehensive guide to the Etowah River with printable maps and information about access points and points of interest, history. All that is included on that website. So it's a great resource, and hopefully later this year we will begin construction on a new boat launch at US 411 near Kingston. So that's that'll be another place where you can access the river. And we really need to work on that, is improving access to our rivers so that people can get out and enjoy our rivers. We feel like the more people are out there and see our rivers and discover their charms, then the more people will be interested in protecting these rivers.
And I guess finally, we don't want to leave today without talking a little bit about an event coming up on January the 12th, that being the annual Polar Bear Paddle, which will put a lot of people on the rivers. And as we look towards the 12th, it looks like the weather is going to be perhaps one of the best weekends we've had, at least temperature-wise.
Yeah, not very polar bearish, I would say. I think it's going to be in the 70s. But we've had a tremendous response to the Polar Bear Paddle. I think we have over 130 people signed up right now. All our boats and kayaks have been claimed. But it should be a really fun day on the river this Saturday.
Paddling from the Dixon Landing to the Heritage Park takeout point there at the confluence of the rivers.
All right, it's about 6 miles.
Joe, thank you much for being with us, and we appreciate all of the work that you have done, that the CRBI organization. I know it's not just Joe Cook, but it's a very active group. How many members do you have now?
We have about over 3,000 members, and growing each year. So.
And if you can add maybe double that over the next 20 years, you ought to be in great shape.
Yep.
Joe Cook with us on this edition of Face to Face. Thank you very much for being with us yourself.